Hey guys, it's your girl Yem, and today we are talking about following instructions. Okay, so we'll get into the whole spiel of that a little bit later. But welcome to YEM'S World. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section below, and share the video. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so today we're talking about following instructions. Up until this point, we have been discussing the various aspects of God within the context of building this tabernacle, the sanctuary, which is kind of the precursor to basically this temple church kind of scenario. So anyway, up until this point, we've been looking at that. Now, all of those things are kind of coming together, and we're now actually going to get into building the tabernacle. So previous to then, these were just basically a download of instructions from God to Moses, telling him how he wants it to be, what the pattern is for this tabernacle. Now, God has, through Moses, commissioned Bezalel and Aholiab to go and do the work. And several times as God is giving these instructions, he says, make sure you follow the pattern. He says that repeatedly. He said, make sure you follow the pattern. So Moses is now given this instruction to Bezalel and Aholiab and all the people who the Bible says whose hearts were stirred up to do the work. So all these people come together whose hearts have been stirred up to do the work. And he's given them these instructions. And the expectation is that they follow them. And so guess what? They follow them. So we're looking at the book of Exodus 35, 36, 37, and 38. This is pretty much where they are building out the tabernacle. So what kind of stuck out to me the most is that Bezalel, who was leading the effort, he just followed the instructions. There was no Bezalel creativity that he added on top of the instructions. There was no Bezalel flair. Aholiab didn't add his 2 cents. I mean, they literally just took what they were given and they did it. And I'm just gonna some random verses here and there. We're looking at Exodus 36, verse 16. I'm just gonna kind of go through. It says, and he coupled 5 curtains by themselves and 6 curtains by themselves. Now this was an instruction that had been given earlier. 17, and he made 50 loops. 18, and he made 50 taches. 19, and he made a covering for the tent. 20, and he made boards for the tabernacle, etc., etc., etc. So what we see here is that Bezalel, Aholiab, and the team, they do exactly as they're told. Now, let's get really practical. They do exactly as they're told. How many of us, when we are given an instruction, do exactly as we're told? I'll be honest with you. I struggle with that. I struggle with doing exactly as I'm told, particularly when I either don't understand it, don't agree with it, don't believe in it, or feel I have a better way. I pretty much do what I think is best. But we see here that they didn't do that at all. They did exactly what they were told. I recently did a study. Within our family, we recently finished the study of the book of Judges. And something stuck out to me in the book of Judges. At the end of a few different chapters in that book, it would say there was no king in Israel. And so everybody did what their heart felt was right. Something to that effect. It's basically everybody did what they thought was the right thing, because there was no according to the Bible, there was no king. There was no governing authority that gave them these, law. Although God had already given them the laws, but that's a different story. But there was no structure in place that told them this is what you need to do, and so everybody did what they wanted. And don't we see that in our society today? Don't we see that in our society today? I mean, let's just look at a few different, examples. Traffic rules. How many of us follow traffic rules to a T? I try to be pretty good because, and here's the thing about instructions. Even if we don't understand them, even if we don't know the origin, we don't understand them, we don't agree with them, somebody sat down and thought about why these particular things need to occur. And they sat down and they mapped out these instructions, as it relates to traffic, on, speed, or red lights and green lights and this and turning and making turnings and all those kinds of things. Somebody thought it through, and there's a reason for it. It was for safety. It's for safety of the public that transits on the road, and so there's a reason. So when somebody goes above the speed limit, you're not just breaking the law, but you are going against the reasoning and, more importantly, the safety now of everybody else on the road, because these laws, have been put in place for safety. And a lot of times God gives us instructions. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And we just simply don't follow them. We just simply don't follow them because we think we know better. We think like, God, no, he couldn't have been saying to do that. And he knows best. What I love about God is he's awesome. He's awesome. And so he gives these instructions for us to follow. And we have these, and we need to follow them. We need to be like Bezalel. We'll see later on what after what happened in the next video. We'll see how him following instructions, what did that do, And so we think about traffic signals. We think about our policies at work. Do you follow your policies at work? Now, I have an interesting experience that happened with an authority figure. I was told exactly how I was to complete this activity. And in my head, I'm thinking like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. And I was told repeatedly, okay, this is how you need to do this. And I said, oh, okay, I mean, that's cool, but I'm not going to. And I didn't. And that was a big mistake. It wasn't, I didn't lose anything. Nobody died. There was nothing, there was no physical harm or anything. But there was disappointment from that authority figure because I didn't follow the instructions. And that was bad. But then there was also my own personal disappointment. There was my own personal disappointment about, I just felt bad because I was like, I realized that actually if I had followed the instructions, things would have gone a lot better. So even though I thought in my head how I should do a certain thing or how I should carry out that assignment, it would have just gone a lot better if I did it the way I was told. And so I felt really, really bad. And that really convicted me in generally speaking for me to step back and to look, do I actually follow instruction? Like, why did I not follow that instruction? And is there an underlying issue that needs to be dealt with? Okay, we're alive in these coronavirus times, and we have been given specific instructions about what we can and can't do. We have been told at this point, stay home. We've been told about hygiene practices. We need to wash our hands frequently, avoid contacting our eyes, our mouth, our nose, or anything that can enter the body. We've been given these specific instructions. And there's some people who are still going out. Some people probably out there who are not being hygienic. There are people out there who are literally, by not following instructions, putting themselves, but not just themselves, other people in danger because of this coronavirus. So following instructions is so critical. It's so critical. And I tell you right now, God is really dealing with me as I prepare for this video. God has been dealing with me that you need to take a look at that, because now I have children and I want my children to follow my instructions. But have I been following instructions that I've been given? And do I expect my children to follow instructions when I struggle with that? And what example do I even set for them if I don't follow instructions? But then I want them to. It won't work. And so God has really been convicting me in that area. And maybe there's somebody out there who He's convicting you to follow instructions. God gives us instructions for our good, for our benefit, and of course we usually don't know the full picture. We don't know the full story, but He gives them for our benefit. And so when we follow those, we are always in a better position. And we'll see in the next place how the obedience of Aholiab and Bezalel and the team, will see how, as they followed the pattern which God gave them, we'll see what that led to. And just spoiler alert, it was a good thing. Now, and then one other point. When we follow instructions, even if we don't understand, even if we just, even if it doesn't make sense and we don't agree with it, that will not kill you. But not follow the consequence of not following instructions can literally kill you. For example, coronavirus that's happening right now. If we refuse to follow the instructions that have been laid out, the guidelines that have been laid out by governing authorities, by our companies, etc., the consequences can be very severe, even fatal. And so let's endeavor to do, because that's God expects obedience. That's one of the things that he holds very dearly, is obedience. And so let's endeavor, and I'm leading the charge in that effort in my own life to look at how I view instructions and really just to start following them. And we'll see how that turns out. And I know it's going to be good, because it's always good when we follow instructions. So I talked about in Judges how everybody was doing their own thing because there was no king in Israel. What happens when we don't have laws and authorities and governing bodies in place? Is everybody does their own thing. Now, I have an example of this. And this happened yesterday or the day before. I had a cup of water, and let's set the context that there's no laws, or everybody does their own thing, right? Everybody has their own, basically, idea of what should be done. So I had a cup of water on the table, and I wanted to drink the water. I had drank some of it. My daughter comes to the table, and she's reaching out for it. And I tell her no, right? I give her an instruction. I say no. But there's no law, right? There's no law in place right now, let's say, for example. And so she pulls the cup, and the water spills on her. Okay, so now we have these opposing views, right? So I wanted the water to stay in place. That's what I wanted. She wanted the water to herself. But what ended up happening is because she didn't follow the instruction, she pulled the water spilled on her, it spilled on the floor. Now somebody's got to clean that up. Now I'm upset because I wanted to drink the water. Now she's upset because she's cold because there's water on her. She almost slipped and fell. And now I'm angry and I want to, either discipline her or in some way. And so see how that whole experience deteriorated just because an instruction wasn't followed, just because we had opposing views and opposing ideas. So there are laws and instructions in place, and then there are governing bodies that are actually there to enforce it. If we go back to the traffic scenario, we have traffic rules and regulations, and then we have the police that enforce them. Why do we need those to be enforced? Well, because I don't think I'm alone. I'm not the only person that has an issue with, kind of wanting to do what I want. We all have that tendency, and so there's an enforcement that's in place that wants to make sure that people follow the instructions for the greater good of society. And my husband describes it this way: if we don't follow instructions, then we are on the path of destruction. And we saw in my example with my daughter in the pulling of the water that it was a total degeneration of that whole situation. We all that needed to happen was that water basically to be drank by me. But what ended up happening is water was wasted, water was spilled on her. I mean, the whole thing degenerated because an instruction wasn't followed. And that's the picture of what happens in life when we don't follow instructions. Things degenerate because what ends up happening is we think, we calculate and we think, okay, the worst that can happen is this. But we typically forget. I had an experience once where somebody told me sternly, don't do that. I wanted to respond in a way. Somebody said, don't do that. My sister, she said, don't respond that way. And I was like, no, I'm going to respond that way. And I was like, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe this, and this. I had completely not factored in that there was a whole nother world of destruction that could come. And it did come. And that happened 12 years ago. Still to this day, it has not been repaired. And so that's the consequence of not following instructions. And so God expects us to follow instructions, and we as humans, for our safety and for the well-being of society, need to do so. So once again, if that's you, pray about it, pray along with me, pray for me. Tell God to help me to see his instructions in a way that are attractive to me to follow, for my benefit and for the benefit of those around me. All right, guys, until next time.